Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Culture Wave Media Network and the Cinema Wave Podcast. And we are back with Cobra Kai Season 6, Part 2. This is the final season of Cobra Kai here on Netflix, separating it between the three parts. We are more than halfway now through our journey of this universe. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Michael. I am joined by Michael Peniston.
Hello, everybody.
Let's step back into the dojo.
Yes.
So much to talk about. So if you didn't have a chance to watch our first episode we had done, it was me, Michael, and Ella, another member of our crew, who unfortunately couldn't be here for this record. But we love you, Ella. We miss you. She was also a huge fan of this part in comparison to the first. I think the first part of this season, all of us felt it was more disjointed than what we wanted. And a lot of what we were saying was we were questioning the separation of the parts. Like, why are we doing it this way? Netflix is now becoming accustomed to doing this, to just drag these things out all the time. The one good benefit to this is that this part, there was so much in these 5 episodes that it could have constituted a whole season.
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
There was so much that happened. So just broad thoughts, Michael, for you. How did you feel about this part? And maybe some standout things, non-spoiler. Maybe like we did at the end of the first episode we did, like the MVP of part 1.
Okay.
Who would be your MVP of part 2 without giving away spoilers?
Without giving away spoilers, okay.
You could explain later why with spoilers, but
spoiler talk. Well, off the rip, I was a huge fan of part 2. It's funny because I remember being iffy about part 1, but I feel like they definitely redeemed themselves here. There was so much that I could talk about, but I'm just gonna avoid spoilers
for a little bit.
Yes, so I'm gonna go right to the last question that you asked. My MVP of this season is going to have to be Miguel.
Okay, I have the same thought. I have the exact same thought. I think that out of all the kids, you've seen the most growth from Miguel's character.
Definitely, yeah.
And also in terms of an actor, like Jolo, I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that he's such an improved actor. My least valuable player would probably be Robbie, which is sad. But we'll get
very sad.
But we'll get to it. The cool thing with what we get in this part is, even despite us now going into part 2 with only 10 episodes remaining, you get very memorable new characters.
Yes.
Just crazy. I mean, they're so good at doing this, where they make you feel a certain thing for a certain team. And at the Sakei Takei now, we're having all these battles, and you have all these different teams now. We have the Iron Dragons, we have the Dublin Thunder. Like, it's just crazy. Like, the creativity that the creators of the show, who I want to give a special shout out to because they're awesome. It is Josh Heald, John Hurwitz, and Hayden Schlossberg. They have and they've talked about this in interviews. The way that they view the Cobra Kai and Karate Kid universe is the way that, like, the Russos look at, like, Marvel. And it's so cool that they have that much inspiration and innovation every single season to do more with it. Mm-hmm. The thing I was worried about was that first part of this season felt the least Cobra Kai to me of all 6 seasons. And I don't know if it was because they focused too much on the kids. And Ella had brought this up when we did our first recording about, like, the whole Mr. Miyagi thing. Like, we don't give a shit. No offense. Like, we love you, Miyagi. We know it all started with you and Daniel LaRusso, but, like, we're over that. We're so far removed from that. Like, we don't need that anymore. And they actually use it in a really cool, manipulative way in this part of the season, by implementing a certain character returning, which we'll get to. But yeah, so much of this is the relationship building between the new crews, all the turmoil that's still happening, and the constant. The only thing that beats you over the head constantly with Cobra Kai, but you know where you're going to get it, is we're going to keep having these conflicts between Tori and Samantha and Miguel and Robbie. We see it and Daniel and Johnny. Like, it's so constant. And I get it. I mean, it's an ensemble. These are the same characters. They've had their share of issues. They're definitely more closer now than they were. And then you added in the Dimitri and Hawk thing a little bit more this season, which they've gone back and forth as well too. But it's always about these connections with these two characters and flip-flopping and all these things. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, and you could definitely, I'll throw this to you, the fight choreography in this season was awesome. And there's a lot of action set pieces because the platform for what these 5 episodes is the Sakei Takei tournament. So you're getting constant karate the whole time.
I genuinely feel like, yes, this is the best karate we're seeing in all of Cobra Kai. And honestly, even Karate Kid. Like, this is just, honestly, it's so action-packed, and you have, like, real talent. And I don't know, are we still in, like, the no spoiler talk right now?
For, like, another minute or two, and then we can jump into spoilers.
Got you, okay. I mean, this isn't a spoiler, honestly. You just had, like, certain all-star players, like a Quan that had like all of like technical, like just like was fully there, a little bit of rage, too much rage, but like was fully there. And then you had like a new character like Axel, who like was just like a big body, who like represented a lot, but still had like those different forms. And like to see the different characters and knowing that like this is the best of the best too. Like, I feel like they delivered. And just like even every little situation, I feel like Cobra Kai has always been good with the karate on the mat, but then the karate off the mat. And I feel like both were solid. I won't get too much because that's spoiler right there.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think that, I mean, Quan, you start to see Quan's potential in the first part of season 6, but this, I mean, he's doing some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like crazy shit.
Yeah.
And Axel's another one because obviously he has the strength and the rage as well. That's kind of deep within him. And he has this lusting for someone, which we'll get into as well. Yeah. But Zara is another character, Axel's teammate.
Oh, yeah. Can't
on the Iron
Zara.
Dragons. First of all, woo,
yes.
Beautiful woman. But this girl is like a world-renowned martial artist in real life. Like, this is, I think, the first acting she had ever done.
Wow.
And she's pretty good with the acting part, but you could just tell how legit of a martial artist she is. And how all of them are. I mean, even like, this is a 16-team tournament, but you're seeing even like the 16 seeds are like showing out when you have all these different. And I what I also loved about this is that we get a bunch of different formats of different challenges in karate instead of just doing the one-on-one that we're so accustomed to, or the capture the flag. Like, I loved the platform sequence, was sick. The only thing I was laughing at, this is such Cobra Kai shit, which is why we could laugh about it, but it's like every time someone would get knocked off the platform, I'd go, how are they getting up on the platform again now? It's a floating platform. There's no ladder. There's not, how are they rappelling? Like, we have no idea. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, you have to suspend disbelief because it's fucking Cobra Kai. Okay, but let's get into spoilers because whoever's watching this is probably a fan of Cobra Kai. And we can start talking to the spoilers. We can try to break this down as much as we can, episode by episode. Okay. But basically, we start off in the beginning of the tournament, and there's already sort of this hesitancy and this worry amongst Miyagi-Do because there was the revelation at the end of part 1 that Tori has joined Cobra Kai, and she is the captain, the female captain of Cobra Kai. One of the most prominent storylines throughout this part is the relationship between Tori and Robbie and what that means for the two of them. And in the beginning, you see probably the first, 3.5 episodes, it has a major impact on Robbie as a character. Yes. It's the first time we've really seen Robbie distracted in maybe 6 seasons, unless I'm forgetting, but like a very serious distraction that he's having where it is preventing him from doing his best karate. It's the worst he's ever looked, in my opinion, on the mat. And Tori's just kind of going about her business. And she has this mentality very early on. She tells him in the hallway, like, we need to separate the karate from the life right now. And he thinks it's a breakup, which I thought was also just hilarious. But he says, people were breaking up. She's like, no, I just want to fucking focus on karate. But it obviously takes a major effect on Robbie's karate. Yeah. And then at the tail end of the season, you see the flip side of it, where Robbie gets motivated by Miguel trying to kind of snatch the captain's thing from him. And Tori winds up losing because she's looking off at Robbie. I thought it was a weird way they did it, too. Every time they would, like, show the glance And it would just be like their face.
Yeah,
It was interesting.
it
But
was.
that whole dynamic of Tori and Robbie this season and the impact of Tori coming in, what were your thoughts on that? Like, do you think they handled it well? Do you wish they had done something different? I personally that was probably my least favorite part of this part of season 6. So how do you feel about it?
I think it was needed to a degree. I agree. It was also one of the worst parts of this part, too. And I just didn't like seeing Robbie like this. Like he looked terrible, like really, really bad. And he, like you said, like the little things, like he was letting people just like get in his head, like crazy. I guess we can spoil it now, so we can talk about it. Like Quan like picked up on that immediately and was using that to his advantage, and and it worked to a degree. Like he really like honestly messed with him, but he was messing with himself at the same time. And I feel like it was needed just because they needed to be able to show some conflict between the two of them, being that they left off with Tori like a bombshell of like Tori being on Cobra Kai. So obviously that needed to have some effect on not just the Miyagi-Do dojo, but also their relationship if they're fighting against each other. But Robbie, they really blew homie out of proportion. I feel like
Robbie was down bad, bro.
He was really down bad, and I what's it called? I am very happy that Miguel was there throughout it, and I'm happy that you had the first part of seeing them grow closer. And I think we talked about that. Like that was like a cool thing to be able to see all of them kind of get closer in the midst of the numerous drama battles that they've had. But to see Miguel be still like a shoulder for him to be on, and still, but also like a tough love sort of like you got to get your shit together. Like, what are you doing? You're a captain. Like, it made me appreciate that dynamic even more. So that's why I feel like it was needed, that whole stupid story arc, just in terms of furthering the character arc in a lot of the other characters.
Well, you appreciate the dynamic more because it doesn't rely strictly on the violence with the kids for the first time in what feels like a very fucking long time. Because the whole baseline of this season is you're constantly seeing action and violence. So when it comes to our original kids, whether that's Miguel and Robbie or Samantha and Tori, and they even have a nice interaction right outside the aquarium where it's just the two of them understanding, like, she's like, I know you didn't do anything wrong. Tori's like, but I'm here for a reason. And Samantha's like, so am I. And like, if you're in the way, like, I need you to understand that it's not personal, but like, you're on the other side. What do you want me to do here? And it's more mature, and which I think that's also another theme with this season. And you see it a little bit in part 1 in a much cornier way when they have the whole sequence at the college campus. But in this season, you get a whole episode where the kids go to a bar because they're legal, because they're in Spain. There's a sexual innuendo, which I was not expecting, when Robbie and Zara apparently had a one-night stand, which is kind of blown past.
Yeah, you're right.
Tori like sees it and she's like, what the fuck? And then they're like, oh, I guess he just fucked another girl, which is crazy. But we've grown with these characters now. I mean, this show has been out. I was looking at, so this show is crazy. So this show has been out since 2018 and it's going to be over in 2025. So it's been out for it's going to be 7 years that we've been with these kids. That's a lot of developmental time. And you can see it. I mean, like, let's for context, let's see how old our stars are, right? So like Jolo, I believe, is in his young 20s now, which means when he started, he was like 13. So Jolo Mataduena, who plays Miguel, was born in 2001.
Wow.
So he's 23, which means if the show started 7 years, then you have to take into account 8 because that's probably when it started filming, right? So if he's 23 minus 7 would be 16. He was probably 15 when the show started. Wow. So he went from being what would be basically a freshman or sophomore in high school to now being someone that would be graduated college. And we've grown with these characters. Now, I'm not going to look up all their ages, but we've grown up with Jolo. We've grown up with Tanner. We've grown up with Mary, Jacob. I mean, all of them, all these characters. And so I really appreciated that it stayed in the vein of what Cobra Kai is, and it still has that that corny mentality at times, but corny in a way where it's like you suspend disbelief and you're there for the ride.
Yeah.
And while you're intermingling the mature themes with the kids. That's how I felt. Did you feel similarly with this part, or
I did. I felt like it was funny because I felt like there was more of a mature level from the kids than the adults at times
100%?
in this. And like you definitely could see it, even just like little moments like um the way this might be a stupid like I'm just thinking of like every character and like their growth, honestly, but even like why am I forgetting her name? Daniel's son.
Daniel's son? Oh,
Daughter,
Anthony.
daughter.
Oh, Samantha.
Samantha. Like the whole Samantha Atzel thing. Like I feel like her and like Miguel like was barely had a part in that, but like you saw what could escalate into something, and I felt like they kind of had like a cool, calm, collective like head over it. Likewise with at home with Kenny and Anthony.
Yes.
You saw that like, which I really liked that storyline and all of this. It was very little, but I felt like it was nice to connect to the people at home.
Bringing Kenny back in with which we're talking spoilers again.
Yeah.
We've warned you a bunch of times now.
Yeah.
The Kenny dynamic and bringing Kenny in at the exact same time as you bringing Terry Silver back was perfect. Like the way they did it and the way that those last 2 episodes, the way they constantly escalate, and you get to a point where literally like it's even with the adult, like it's Johnny versus Kreese the whole fucking 4 episodes until Terry comes in, and then Kreese and Johnny are like, we got to take this motherfucker out. Like this is fucking Terry Silver. Like we're not messing around. Like, and I think I had said that to you and Ella when we did the first part. I was like, we need Terry back. Like we can't end this show without Terry Silver.
Yeah.
We can't do it.
Yeah.
So bringing him back, and then the impact that Kenny had, and getting to see them sort of wrap up their stuff. And Kenny is such a sick martial artist.
Yeah.
Like, so getting to see him back in and Lee take ownership for what she was doing. The stuff with the kids did, like you said, just felt so much more mature.
Yeah.
This season.
And then to see like little moments, like you still had like Kreese and Johnny, obviously, like not Johnny, Kreese and Daniel. Like the one moment where Daniel, like, I mean, granted, it was well justified. He was spent all day in a cage, but like when he punched him against the wall and like the little things like that, and then Silver just being there in general was like you said, it's like the kids have figured it out a little bit more than the adults. And I honestly, even Daniel and his like Mr. Miyagi like fit, like he could have controlled that a little bit more to a degree to be there for his like students during like,
it was crazy.
You know,
I mean, his justification to constantly push the envelope to honor this dead guy's life. I mean, listen, we love Mr. Miyagi here at the Culture A Media. I'm not gonna sit here and say we don't, but he abandons his kids. He literally abandons his own daughter at the biggest karate tournament in the world amidst constant turmoil, with knowingly that him and Johnny are not lining up in terms of their senseiing, and he's just like, I just gotta go somewhere quick. It's not a problem. He gets locked in a dog cage, dude. Like, what were your thoughts on that whole sequence? Because that was, I mean, like, just crazy.
I was honestly kind of let down to a degree. It was cool, like being in a dog cage and seeing like how that played out. I thought was like, oh, this is like different from what we've seen, I guess. Like it's kind of like Mission Impossible steak, like with in the Mr.
Life or death shit,
right? That was kind of cool. But at the same time, it was a letdown because they were like building up to like what could have been like all right, maybe we will learn something new about Mr. Miyagi. Like they're hyping this up, and then like it was cool, I guess, to find out that it was connected to not only Kreese but then Terry in the end. But it was like, oh, why then were we spending so much time building up to what could have been? And like, we still never really got like a real reveal.
My favorite part of the Miyagi thing this whole season was and then it gets messed up. But like, my favorite Miyagi related thing was the dream that he has, which I thought was really cool. Where Daniel is basically he's asleep the night before the last round of the tournament before they announce the semifinal matchups, and shit hits the fan. But he has this dream sequence where he's battling a young version of Mr. Miyagi in like the 40s or 50s set tournament. And I thought that was sick, and like the psychological thing and how like effective and raw Miyagi was in that scene. Like whoever the actor was they cast was really great as a young Miyagi. And then they did the aging thing, and it looked really bad.
It was so bad.
It looked really bad, and it sucks because I understand as storytellers the psychology of what that moment meant. Because you like that's I mean again he's obviously fighting a young Mr. Miyagi, but Daniel didn't know what young Mr. Miyagi looked like. He didn't even know he fucking fought in Sakei Takei. So, but he obviously understood who it was. But then when he gets that visual of like, and when you first see it, I'm like, oh, that looks pretty good. And then he starts talking, and I'm like, oh my god, what's happening? This is AI. This is AI. Like, it looks really bad. It looks really, really bad. They age. They do like a digital thing. Because obviously the actor that plays Mr. Miyagi's been passed for quite a while, but it doesn't work. But the thing now, which is the big thing for this season, which I ask you too, because I'm so curious. The big thing that we learn with the Miyagi thing is that around the time of that tournament, there was a death that occurred within the Sakei Takei tournament, and it is written, which also might not be true because who knows? It could have been Terry Silver, but it said that Miyagi ended his match in death, that he killed his opponent. At the end of this season, we get a death. If I can recall, it's our first death. It's our first real death. In Cobra Kai, and it's Quan, and it's kind of it is self-inflicted, but nonetheless, it's a shocking moment that completely has changed the course of what the show can be. In the last 5 episodes, we're past the corniness at this point. Like a person died because he stabbed himself on accident because he was trying to kill somebody else with the knife, and he lands on it. What did you think about that moment in general, and where do you think we can go from here? Because that's where I'm like I was sitting there like, oh my god, but then I was like, where do we go from here? Because everybody stops in their tracks in that sequence, including Terry. Like everybody is basically like, oh shit, like maybe we should stop with this crazy karate stuff. Which, I mean, you get a moment like that. I think it's season 2 or season 3 finale when season 2 when Miguel falls in the school. But even that didn't stop them, and it got way worse. And we're getting samurai swords and Terry Silver involved. Now someone's dead. Someone's literally dead because of all the influence of all these kids and the influence, especially of the adults, and the effect they have on the kids. So, what did you think about the ending with Quan dying, and where do we go from here?
I really was not expecting a death to occur. I mean, like I knew that the whole like Miyagi bat story was like it had to have been foreshadowing something. And I kind of liked how it did foreshadow a death to happen. Considering he was so crazy and bent up about it. What's it called? But as far as Quan's death, I felt like oh man, the way they did it, honestly, I felt like was huge and really solid just because the sound of him getting stabbed alone was like you like all throughout like part 2 and the first part you were used to hearing like Quan like yeah all those things and like intense but that was like a blood curdling sort of scream that you heard, and to the point where like everyone knew, okay, wait, that's not. So I thought that it was crazy, one, because again, it was new, like you said. But also to a degree, I felt like it was needed. Like everything that happened, I thought was needed. I felt like somebody needed to die in the midst of this, especially considering that how else was this going to end? You had all of the best dojos in the world in one place, like attacking each other. Like where else is that going to go? So it made sense. And it needed to be a wake up call. I feel like for especially the adults who are also actively involved in all of that, and also actively started it, to be honest, with like the announcer guy and the Russian coach. Which I how did you
Dude,
feel about that moment when that
bro,
happened?
that was maybe the most shocking moment I've seen in the history of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in majority of shows that I've watched in recent years, because it just caught me so off guard. And you obviously knew that the Russian team that was they had 3 kids on their team test positive for performance enhancing drugs or whatever it was. You saw how pissed he was. He's like, I'll take you right here, like the Russian coach. So you knew that like that might play a role down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you get so locked in with the action sequences in the tournament
Yeah.
that I'm not even thinking about the Russians at that point. And he got cracked, dude. Like our boy got cracked. And it was an incredible sequence after that. I mean, the last episode is probably in my top 3 episodes of the series ever.
For sure. Oh,
because there's so much that's happening. There's incredible action. There's stakes for the first time that feel like real stakes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what pushes the envelope with this part of season 6 way more than season 1, which we knew that was going to happen anyway, right? Like we're setting the stage for what this part could be.
Yeah.
But I think what's so lackluster about part 1 is that it's leading you to nothing. Essentially, it's just it's getting these team members assembled and making a team and creating the conflict, and Kreese breaking out of prison to get us to this point. And the way that, like, at the end, here's and this is the problem with the model of dividing it between parts, though. We walked out of part 1. I think I don't want to speak for Ella, but Ella, let us know in the comments. Me and Ella all came out of part 1 being like, I'm let down. Like, this sucks. This doesn't feel like a real season of Cobra Kai. I don't feel like we got anywhere with any of these characters. It was a lot of the same stuff. And then we had a few months of time in between before we got to part 2. And going into part 2, we had a conversation last week before it came out. And we were both like hesitant. We're like, I don't know how it's going to be. This was the same feeling I had with previous seasons of the show, where I was like, I want more now.
Yeah.
Like, I want more of this show right now. That it got my love for the universe back on board. I got very excited, which we talked about off screen before this, for the Karate Kid movie that is now that Heald, Hurwitz, and Schlossberger all working together with as producers on the film, with Ralph Macchio returning and Jackie Chan returning. So it just feels different. Like these 5 episodes, this encapsulated story feels so much different and more rewarding and more fulfilling than part 1 did. And we get a lot of material in 5 episodes with about the same run times.
Yeah.
With all these characters. Like, again, Robbie's our least valuable player. But other than him, I think there's a lot of really valuable things that came out of pretty much every character.
Yeah.
Even if it's like the Miyagi storyline with Daniel, despite us not getting an answer, we start to now see the impact that the Miyagi stuff has on him, and that we're now mirroring a potential scenario that happened 70 years prior with his sensei now happening within the Sakei Takei tournament that he is involved in. And there's a lot to go with that, with the psychology of it. I mean, he talks about how Miyagi always swore against tournaments. Why is that? Is it because he killed somebody in a tournament? Like, we could start to explore that a little bit more. That could be something that plays into the psychology of Daniel going forward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of potential coming out of this.
There is, yeah.
Where I felt like with part 1, we were just sitting there like, that kind of sucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there are a number of ways too that they could take this. To your last question that you had asked, as far as like where could they go from this, I think it's going to be pretty similar to earlier on in the season, like you said, when the whole big fight happened to Miguel the whole fall, and then like it was like banned, I'm pretty sure, for in the school, at least at that time. This is at like a world stake level, and it's happened. So I feel like it's almost going to be like a sort of thing where like they're not gonna ban karate in the world, but like,
crazy.
Imagine, but like, they're definitely gonna maybe ban the Sakei Takei tournament sort of thing, and maybe it becomes a thing where that will alone, I feel like, creates some sort of wave effect in like all of the dojos, especially with Daniel. I think we'll probably have Daniel now really, really like affected by this, knowing the Mr. Miyagi thing. Um, and he probably will like not have Sam like compete at all. I mean, I think it'll be canceled. That canceled. Like they'll stop the tournament,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously, but like he'll probably tell her to like stop doing karate. Honestly, because I feel like he's that crazy right now. Where
Yeah.
he's like, but what I think could happen is coming off too of the kids coming in a or having a more mature approach this part.
Mhm.
I think that all of the dojos will probably come together and try and do their own thing essentially. That will, I mean, it might go against it, but I think that they're gonna be like, no, like we need, like, we want a winner. And so it might not be at like a world state level, but it could reach that point where like maybe they do cameras and they do all that stuff. And I think that because it's not following technically a Sakei Takei format, that's where you'll be able to have like maybe Atzel and Miguel fight. That's where you'll be able to have like certain team ups that like you saw a glimpse of
Mhm.
at the end of that last battle, but I think aren't done. I think we'll see. I think there's gonna be that fight was the Wakanda battle in Infinity War, and I think in part 3 we're gonna get like a like a Thanos type battle where like maybe it might not be at that level, but I think that we will get something of that regard. Of like not at that level, meaning like we might not get like a major fight like we just saw again.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that we're gonna have like a moment like that where it's like in part 3. I don't know. I don't know.
It's weird because I agree with what you're saying. Like they have to find a way to outlaw karate, like at some level,
Mm-hmm.
based on the way this ends. I mean, a kid is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like so, you can't just continue on as if nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with you with the Daniel thing. I think that's going to play into the movie.
Yeah.
When it eventually comes, I think it's going to be, because I had said to you before we started recording, there was a new report out about the movie that it takes place 3 years after the events of Cobra Kai,
Mm-hmm.
which means that Daniel's going to be removed from karate at that point. And I think he's not going to be that much older. I mean, he's filming it currently. He's the same age.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what they're going to do with him. But it's going to be very reminiscent of how like Miyagi also doesn't want to help.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's going to be Miyagi again. Like
Yeah.
the same way that Jackie Chan also was that for Jaden Smith
Mm-hmm.
in their Karate Kid movie. But I'm curious on what happens with the kids, because the next step for most of these kids is college. Like Miguel is going to college, like Hawk's going to college. I know Samantha is supposed to be going to college. Robbie obviously doesn't have much of an opportunity to do the same. Same with Tori. I'm very curious what does come of Robbie and Tori's relationship,
Mm-hmm.
especially following something like this. I mean, it's Tori's teammate, and she was kind of eclipsing what she needed to do, with help from Kreese and the other trainer. Can't think of her name now. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The female trainer.
Her name too.
Where is she? Kim Da-eun. The one interesting one for me that we didn't talk a lot about, which I think we should at least touch on,
Mm-hmm.
is Sensei Wolf, Louis Tan's character.
Oh yeah.
He's a new sensei that
Mm-hmm.
comes in.
Mm-hmm.
He's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
He beats his students. And Terry Silver is the one that discovers him after he goes through all the shit he goes through at the end of season 5.
Mm-hmm.
And he's seeing him kill opponents, essentially, like just like in a cage, just destroying people.
Yeah.
And you see that semblance of him trying to kill Johnny in the giant fight sequence. So he could be the Thanos level threat. He could be potentially, but it's interesting because again, with what happens at the end, like, and I don't think they cut to him. They do a lot of cutaways when Quan dies of a lot of characters. I mean, all the kids, all the parents, or all the adults. You get Kreese. You even get, like I said, Terry Silver's even looking on like, oh my god, what is happening?
Mm.
But you don't get a look at Sensei Wolf. I don't think. I'd have to go back and rewatch it. So there's something with him that I still think can play into it.
Mhm.
I just don't know how I agree with you. They're gonna have to do something that's like on an end game level. Like I don't know how you necessarily accomplish that based on what we just saw. Like I don't know how you can get bigger than that unless everyone in America is fighting each other.
Right?
Right? Like that's like everybody in the valley is fighting one
Yeah.
another in the streets. And you
Yeah.
know what? Stingray's still around, so Stingray might have to come back and do something. Like
I'm telling you, that's why I feel like it's gonna get the tournament will get canceled, and they're gonna find a way to just have their own tournament. I'm telling you, I feel like we've seen that in the past, and then that's how you'll be able to have, because it could happen in where are they from again? California?
yeah,
It could
California.
happen where they're at in California, and then like everyone comes there, and then that's how you then bring it back to where it
We
was,
started.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like, I just feel like it made sense, and then they're gonna want to be like, we're going to college. I still want, like, I might not get a championship victory, but I want to at least know I was a winner. We're gonna get some line like that, some corny line. Like, I'm telling you,
I do hope they wrap it up in a good way, though. I mean, this, like I said, I think both of us feel similar. This reinvigorated our love for Cobra Kai.
for sure.
This part of season 6,
Mhm.
we covered a lot of different things. I mean, Miguel, we just discussed briefly that he was the MVP. I just thought there was a lot more maturity to him as a character.
Definitely.
He wasn't blinded by the stuff with Samantha. Their relationship has sort of blossomed into a mature thing and an understanding of like, all right, we're gonna go and do our own thing, but like we're obviously in love with each other, but we both have missions to do here.
Yeah.
We finally get Kenny towards the end of the season, which is great. We get the Terry Silver return. The only other character I thought was a little underutilized this season, but he's been in so much of the show, was Johnny. I felt like we didn't get a lot of Johnny in this part.
I agree with that, and I think that it was definitely intentional. I think that it's somehow gonna come back to Johnny, like in the end in part 3, just because if you think about it, all of this it's still Cobra Kai.
It's his story.
Yeah,
it hasn't been Daniel's story. It's been, the real story is really him and Miguel. I mean, Robbie, of course, too, but like the story started with him and Miguel.
Yeah.
So he's gonna have the hero moment by the end of the show. I think
for sure.
It's gotta be Johnny.
And I think Miguel is gonna have his hero moment. Honestly, I think now that this tournament is like probably wraps, what is there for Robbie to have other than just like a victory? Just like the claim of victory. So I feel like, I don't know. That doesn't make sense actually, because if it's wraps, what is Miguel gonna win? Never mind.
Oh, we'll have to see.
Yeah, we just have to wait.
We gotta wait and see. I don't know. The other thing I looked up is I was trying to find out when it comes back.
February.
Is it February? I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know they had a date. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So February 11th, we'll be back
Mhm.
in February to discuss it. I'm excited. I thought it was actually a lot further than that.
Mm.
So February 11th is the end of Cobra Kai.
Wow.
It's crazy. A lot to anticipate, a lot to talk about, but I feel like we covered most of the bases, right?
Yeah. I feel like we got it all.
We got it all.
I do.
Pretty much. Well, if there's anything we did miss, let us know in the comments. We love talking about Cobra Kai. It's great to feel reinvigorated by the franchise. It's cool to see that they're continuing in this universe with the new Karate Kid Rebirth movie that's coming out with Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan, and we're more than likely going to get more cameos in that movie, I would have to assume. So
I hope
we'll be seeing that stuff. We'll obviously cover that movie when it comes out, but let us know in the comments, what are your guys' thoughts on Cobra Kai season 6 part 2? Did you guys enjoy it more than part 1? What are you guys, this is the big thing, what do you guys think is going to happen in the aftermath of what happened in part 2? Let us know your theories in the comments. We love hearing your theories. We love discussing all that stuff with you guys. If you could also give this video a like and subscribe to us here at the Culture Wave Media Network. We cover everything film and television. I'm currently covering Yellowstone right now with Liz. Michael's going to be doing Wicked next week. I'm going to be doing Gladiator 2. We have some interviews coming up with some filmmakers, which is really exciting. There's a ton of stuff we're doing on the channel, so please be sure to check all that stuff out and share this with your friends and family as well. You can also follow us on social media if you don't already. All that stuff is below me in the video. We're on most social media, so you guys can check us out on there as well. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Michael Peniston,
and we will see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.